know who I am anymore. I've lost everything. All the things I've worked for have been gone. Everything is so pointless. But their mind is still talking. It's all been for nothing. It's all meaningless. This is your mind talking. Don't believe in the things it says, but it continues talking. Many humans in this world are suffering from what we could call nihilism. I don't know if you know that word, nihilism.
We'd refer to it as nihilism, being a nihilist.
Is absolutely and utterly pointless. That's a deep form of suffering. Nihilism, it doesn't make, what's the point of it all? Just this awful life of mine, the whole world is pointless, it's so awful. And that's a very deep suffering, the total lack of meaning. Everything is arbitrary, random, and meaninglessness is a mental disease that is afflicting millions of humans. It's because everybody, the mainstream culture still believes. It goes back to the 19th century. It goes back to Darwin, Origin of Species, that life evolved, which undoubtedly is true. But he said life evolved, but the evolution of life on this planet is an arbitrary, random course of events, molecules and atoms at random coming together and forming life forms over millions of years. Random, the idea of randomness in the theory of evolution put forward by Darwin and others, the idea of randomness means there's no purpose or intelligence behind it whatsoever. It's a random process. In other words, it's the belief that that all life on this planet has no meaning. It just is a meaningless conglomeration of atoms and molecules. It's ultimately meaningless. That basically is the underlying assumption behind the theory of evolution that many people still believe, and it has seeped into mainstream culture, and even people who have never even heard of Darwin, it has seeped into their belief system that we live in a meaningless
universe.
Before that happened, we had certain religious beliefs, so there was some meaning. And a lot of that perhaps was ideological and ego-driven. Nevertheless, in the ancient religion, there is access to the transcendent is still there here and there. So there were still little openings into the transcendent, even though many forms of religion developed into ideological belief systems that strengthened the ego. Nevertheless, religion still carried and still carry the secret of transcendence is still there, hiding within the religions, and that became inaccessible to many humans. So now we have a pandemic of nihilism. This is one of the pandemics far worse than any physical pandemic. The belief that everything is meaningless. So, at some point, a meaning that is purely personal may begin to lose its power. So that, let's say you've spent 2 or 3 decades working for your career, which is nothing wrong with it. At some point, you may arrive at a point where your career doesn't mean anything anymore, or you lose it. That you lose your career and your status, or it consumes you so completely that you become ill with stress, or in some other way turns into something that's not satisfying at all, that actually creates suffering. So something can give you limited meaning for a while, for years, and then suddenly turn out to be ultimately meaningless. So, and some people suddenly wake up and say, all my life, some people fall ill, seriously ill. And then they look back on their life and say, this was so pointless, accumulating possessions. Why did I do that? What was the point in that? All the things that I was so anxious about when let's say they're seriously ill now. All the things that I was so anxious about that were created, what was that was so unnecessary and pointless. All the things that I'd been striving for were ultimately pointless. That can be an opening. Suddenly, wow, the limited personal meaning, which was fine, it's better than no meaning at all. To have a personal meaning in your life, better than no meaning at all. But ultimately, that's not satisfying in the long term. You have to go deeper to a deeper meaning that transcends who you are as a person. And that is, am I aligned with the purpose of the universe? That is the ultimate true meaning. Am I aligned with the purpose? And what is the purpose of the universe? The purpose of the universe is consciousness, bringing more consciousness into this dimension. That's the purpose of the universe, bringing more consciousness into this dimension. Am I aligned with that? Then, if that is the case, if you're aligned with that, you're a bringer of consciousness, a bringer of light. That is the ultimate true purpose. And it could be that your personal purpose and the deeper purpose can go together. That's fine. So you can have a career, and yet it's not totally ego-dominated. While you are active working, you bring in the light of consciousness. You do things in your work that bring more consciousness into this dimension. That's wonderful. So you can have, it is not necessarily a case of either having a career or being aligned with universal purpose, which is you can bring the two together. That's the balance between being and doing, as I sometimes call it. The balance between being and doing, bringing those two together. But so the purpose, there's only one true purpose in your life, and that you have to discover that, and that is, am I aligned with the consciousness, and am I a bringer of consciousness? So that's the end of nihilism, is that, and it no longer matters. Your entire past becomes relatively unimportant when you realize the meaning of life is to be a bringer of consciousness.
Meaning of life is to be a bringer of consciousness.
And now, let me leave you with some words from Mahatma Gandhi. When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time, they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fall. Think of it. Always. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time.